You know what? I'm just going to come right out and say it because this is starting to feel like a reoccurring theme when it comes to movies like this. But the truth is that I can't help but feel like there is some form of cinematic manipulation going on here, especially when everything from the overhyped early reactions to the movie itself makes me feel like I was being gaslit into believing that this movie is better than it actually ended up being. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid. I can't really be sure. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it! Do it!
A young predator outcast and a synthetic named Thea embark on a dangerous journey to find the ultimate adversary on a remote planet. You know what? If the official Google synopsis for this film is still calling these creatures predators, even though that's technically not what they are called in-universe, then guess what? I'm still going to call them predators too.
Nobody likes a smartass, alright?
So director Dan Trachtenberg has received a lot of credit over the last several years for saving or even revitalizing the Predator franchise after a series of missteps. And I have to be honest, I do think that the overhyping of the Dan Trachtenberg Predator movies needs to be studied. Granted, I did not see his Killer of Killers animated Predator film from earlier this year, but if we are talking strictly about his live action efforts, I really don't understand where all of this hype is coming from. I mean, I thought that Prey was fine in some aspects, but mostly forgettable. And then we have Predator Badlands, which is being promoted by some as the best thing in the franchise since the original film. Stop me if you've heard this before.
You serious?
That is mighty big praise, especially when you consider that the original 1987 film is not only personally one of my all-time favorite movies, I just so happen to believe that it's one of, if not the greatest action film ever made. The way that it mixed elements of action, sci-fi, and horror effortlessly to create one of the most unique cinematic experiences I've ever had is a big reason why I don't feel like any other film in this franchise even comes close. And Predator Badlands is no exception to that. And to me, now that I've seen Badlands for myself, it's almost laughable to suggest that it's even in the same stratosphere as the original. To me, more than anything, Badlands came off as Predator Light. Like the powers that be are actively trying to make the Predator franchise as mainstream as possible. And I understand that from a business perspective, but from a creative perspective, if it comes at the expense of the character and the world that has been established up until this point, that's when someone like me starts to have a problem.
No, don't like that.
And to be clear, my issues with this movie stretch far beyond the much talked about PG-13 rating. To me, while watching Badlands, it was pretty obvious that they made a conscious decision to not include any human characters, because that was their very easy way of getting around the blood that would have forced them to get an R rating. And I don't know if that's clever or if it cheapens the experience, but at the end of the day, for me at least, the brutality of the Predator was not on full display as we are accustomed to seeing. And I just want to say, before I get too deep into the video, I don't think that it was all bad. I actually think the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie is probably the best part of it. The setup involves this film establishing the culture of these species by showing us the unforgiving nature of their customs. Now, this is the kind of stuff that you would normally only get if you were reading the novels or comic books associated with this franchise. So the fact that they are including this kind of stuff in live action might be enough to excite some Predator fans. The idea of a Predator runt who would normally be discarded due to his deficiencies being so defiant that he refuses to be denied could make for an interesting story idea, even if I do believe that it is a fine line that they are walking on. On the one hand, they are showing this on full display in the most brutal and unforgiving way possible. And on the other hand, it kind of speaks to my biggest problem with this movie, and with most Predator movies, and that's that it's getting to the point where we know too much.
Stop it!
And what do I mean by that? Well, this movie was clearly designed to make us sympathize with this Predator in particular. The film is very much trying to humanize him, make him more relatable, and dare I say, give his character a character arc that this creature has not really seen in live action before. And in a normal situation, more character would always obviously be a good thing. But in this particular situation, I think the mystique of the character is much more important. Again, as a massive fan of the original film, to me the whole reason the creature worked in that film, outside of its badass design of course, is that we knew as little about it as possible. Of course we learned little things here and there about the creature as the film progressed, but that original movie very much took a less is more approach. Badlands is very much taking a more is more approach, expanding on the scope, expanding on the lore, and expanding on the character of the Predator itself. And I just don't know that all of that, in my opinion, is something that I want to be expanded on. I just don't find it interesting.
How can you not care?
Like this.
It's why I constantly say that everything that needed to be said about these creatures was pretty much said in that first film. And it's also the reason why I don't really see a point to continue to make Predator movies to begin with. I've seen a lot of people say that, well, Predators aren't technically villains, they're just doing what they were taught. So why is it a problem that they are being portrayed as a hero in this film? But that's just the thing, I have always looked at them as villains, regardless of the fact that they do have a certain moral code that they tend to follow. I mean, even in Badlands, the Predators are portrayed as villains to a certain degree. The very message of this movie is about this young Predator finding a way to see past the beliefs and ideals that were instilled in him by his people, and quote-unquote learning to become more human and a more well-rounded, less rigid Predator.
Message!
Which brings me to my biggest issue I had with this movie, that being Elle Fanning's character, the android Thea. She is basically a vessel for quirky comic relief, and she is the plot device that helps this Predator see the error of his toxic masculinity ways. If the Predator believes that emotions make him weak, she'll be right there to tell him why those emotions are important. And I don't know, similar to how the Predator-human team-up in the first AVP movie felt very jarring to me, this kind of had the same energy. I just didn't buy into their relationship at all. I actually think the very moment her character is introduced in this film is precisely the moment where the movie goes completely downhill.
You about to cross some lines.
Guys,
It not only presents this massive tonal shift, thanks again to the quirkiness of Thea as a character, but it also creates this forced dynamic between them that I think the movie thinks is way more entertaining than it actually is. I was actually starting to roll my eyes every single time the Predator was getting lessons in humanity from a synth of all places. I mean, there was even a brief moment, where the Predator attempts to crack a joke about her not having legs. I mean, I was half expecting him to go full Austin Powers and talk about how she's never going to have a leg up on her competition. There's even a moment in the film where they kind of beat you over the head with the idea that they've both been outcasted by their own kind, and that they're actually a lot more similar than either of them thought when they initially met. And normally that would be something that would be infinitely relatable. It just ended up being this really bare bones cliche approach to building their relationship that did absolutely nothing to make me truly buy into it.
put some effort into it.
On the plus side of things, there was no hint of a romantic relationship between them, like some people were insinuating, which honestly was a relief, because if that would have happened, it would have took these concerns I have about their relationship in general to a whole nother level. So kudos to them for showing some level of restraint, I guess, even though I'm sure there's some weirdo shipper out there on the internet who's fantasizing about them making synthetic Predator babies as we speak. As far as the action goes, there's some pretty decent stuff there, a lot of slicing and dicing as you would expect. But if I'm being honest, there was nothing from an action set piece standpoint that really stood out to me in a big way. Most of the kills involve the Predator killing other creatures, as this movie very much plays out like a video game plot. with the Predator and his legless sidekick Synth moving from one area to another on this strange planet, getting attacked by new creatures in every scene. Something tells me that if they just removed the BFF Synth aspect of this movie and had a straight man-on-a-mission action flick, it might have actually been a lot more digestible. But because of the therapy aspect of this script, that is very much being presented by the character of Thea, it predictably feels like from the start that the whole purpose of the Predator being on this planet to begin with will not have a payoff, and by the end of it, I was correct. They do try to make up for it by giving him a new goal to achieve about 2/3 of the way through the film, but even that was nowhere near as satisfying as it probably should have been. There is this epilogue in the film that completes the revenge plot that is set up in the very first scene in the movie that was a bit more satisfying because it had some more emotion behind it, but it did also kind of feel a bit too little too late by that point and like a massive missed opportunity.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
In the end, to me, without a doubt, this is the very obvious Disneyfication of the Predator franchise, and it just didn't land with me. I was largely uninterested in this movie from start to finish, outside of a handful of glimpses of what could have been a much better movie had they went all in on some ideas and cut out some others. Predator Badlands to me is yet another overhyped and cliche Predator film, only this time they are going full action-adventure. And normally I would welcome that kind of vast departure from what came before, but in this instance, it just felt like them watering the Predator down to the point where everything lost all meaning. The Predator Badlands to me is the latest example of Disney overexposing one of their properties, or even worse, trying to turn it into something that it's not. I felt next to nothing while watching this movie, and that is precisely why I'm going to be giving it the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
Y'all be cool. Right on.